So this is weird. I've been instructed to gather every new or significantly updated mainstream 3-row SUV for a special shootout comparison. Pretty much everything is here from the class, except the Jeep Grand Cherokee L, which just couldn't make it. Actually, speaking of missing, where the heck is Mike?
Hey Kyle, sorry I'm late. You ready to get started?
Yeah Mike, but isn't this the brand new CX-90 from Mazda? Like, this isn't even out yet. How'd you get it?
Don't worry about it. Let's just get going. It's time for the AutoGuide 3-row SUV comparison shootout brought to you by WeatherTech.
Thanks to the wonders of modern video editing, I'm now going to tell you everything I just learned driving the all-new Mazda CX-90. Now I know some journalists will sneer at that term, but really just about everything you see here is all new for Mazda in North America. The CX-90 rides on a rear-drive bias platform, although here all-wheel drive is of course standard. There's also a new inline 6-cylinder turbo engine. And on this side of the Atlantic, the CX-90 will debut mild hybrid and plug-in hybrid variants. Oh yeah, and this paint color is new. It looks pretty good, right? Mazda's current design language is as handsome as ever, and Artisan Red is an appropriately fancy Merlot-like color. We all gave the CX-90 top points for exterior styling, liking its just right amount of flashy chrome, smooth lines, and its classic rear drive proportions. Those enormous 21-inch wheels sure are pretty too. They're the biggest in the test and come wrapped in the widest rubber. Inside the CX-90, Mazda isn't afraid to get a little adventurous with the materials and design. You've got this unique material that's covering the dashboard and door panels where it mixes with this light wood and highly reflective chrome strips. It's also pretty practical in here too, with good storage in the doors and an entire center console in the second row. Over here on the dashboard, you've got this hanging stitch feature that goes across, which Mazda says is inspired by ancient Japanese bookbinding techniques. If I had to nitpick, I'd probably talk about how this steering wheel is now a little thicker than normal, and there's this weird knock-it-to-the-side shifter. They're both quaint, premium, German. The Bavarian comparison isn't just aspirational either. Under the hood is a silky smooth 3.3-liter inline 6 turbo. This engine produces a test-best 340 horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque, though it's also one of the few to drink from the premium tap, the other one being the other Mazda. A lower power version of this engine produces 280 horsepower and 332 pound-feet of torque on regular fuel. Just keep that in mind for later. Both setups come with a mild hybrid system, standard all-wheel drive, and an 8-speed transmission. Simply put, this is the best drivetrain of the bunch. Powerful in the mid-range, smooth at low speeds thanks to the seamless mild hybrid setup, and wildly efficient. The CX-90 is quoted at 28 miles per gallon highway, or 8.5 liters per 100 kilometers for Canadians, but our condensed mixed-use test loop saw 29.4 miles per gallon, or an even 8 liters. The CX-90 also has an easy dynamic edge. It might be a hefty thing, but this is a rear bias platform that gives it a smooth, sophisticated, and really composed feel from behind that embiggened wheel. Even in pre-production form, the CX-90 has one of the quietest cabins in this test too. Drive it down a curvy road, and the CX-90 really shrinks around the driver. Like the CX-9, it has a ride that's a little on the firm side, but it's in no way uncomfortable. Mazda has loaded up its new range topper with a smorgasbord of features. A head-up display, heated and ventilated seats in the front 2 rows, a high-res 360-degree camera, you name it, the CX-90 has it, matching those loaded Korean competitors. We especially like the in-cluster display showing the Mazda's place in its lane, as well as the other cars on the road. There is just one area where Mazda continues to lag behind, its infotainment system. There might be a bigger screen, but the lack of native touch capability still hurts it. There is one area where the CX-90 struggles, at least in the US: price. As equipped, this thing rings in at almost $62,000, which is $8,000 shy of the next priciest model, the Telluride. Remember that less powerful engine we were talking about? Yeah, that saves you almost $7,000, and really you only lose out on a handful of the fanciest features. In Canada, this is still the most pricey model, but it's only $1,000 or so pricier than the Pilot. Overall, the Mazda CX-90 makes a very strong first impression. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. How about the rest of the welcoming party? Let's hand it over to Mike to find out.
Yes, the box is back. After the curvier, more rounded previous generation Pilot, Honda has gone back to basics and given the new model a boxier shape. We're big fans of the look on the new vehicle, especially the Black Edition. Now, for our American viewers who may be scratching their heads, the Black Edition is the top Canadian trim package, which is very similar to the US spec Elite, along with the Sport's blacked out appearance. But enough about the Pilot's looks. Is the rest of the SUV just as good? In short, yeah, it is. Here's why. Honda is one of the few manufacturers still offering a naturally aspirated V6 in this class. Many have jumped to turbocharged 4-cylinders, as these big 6-cylinders can feel strained and overwhelmed at times. With the Pilot though, that is not the case. Honda's 3.5-liter V6 makes 285 horsepower, which only puts it about mid-pack in this competition. But in real-world use, we scored it as our second favorite drivetrain. A lot of that has to do with how easy and smoothly the engine revs. As well, the 10-speed automatic transmission not only has the most gears out of any vehicle here, it is one of the best in operation. When it comes to ride comfort, the Pilot once again excels. Receiving top marks in our comparison, the Pilot absorbs bumps with ease, isolates vibrations, and treats all passengers to a pleasant experience. The soft suspension also doesn't sacrifice handling, which we found to be above average. With the latest Pilot, Honda seems to have taken the bigger is better approach. This is the second largest vehicle here, but it offers the most cargo and interior space. The second and third row seats scored second best in our test, as did the cargo in the back. Up front, we really appreciate the driving position, which we found to be the best in test. The interior is laid out in a logical manner, but we would gladly take a few more hard buttons for the infotainment screen controls. Of course, no vehicle is perfect, and there are a few things working against the Pilot. For starters, there's the price. As tested, it's nearly tied as the second most expensive vehicle on hand. The big, rev-happy V6 is also a bit thirsty, with fuel economy figures registering near the back of the pack. And when it comes to the interior, we find it could look and feel a bit more premium, especially when compared to some of the similarly priced competition on hand. Honda's latest SUV isn't just a great new Pilot, it is a great new vehicle, period. With good looks, excellent road manners, and tons of passenger space, could it win this whole comparison? Or will its price point hold it back? Before we let you know, we have more vehicles to look at. Before we move on, let's take a second to talk about our sponsor. Custom made for an exact fit, WeatherTech offers complete protection for your vehicle's interior. There's the original WeatherTech floor liner and the new WeatherTech floor liner HP that's made from a more flexible material. Both work with your vehicle's floor mat clips and protect up the side of your footwell. Plus, the floor liner HP comes with these spikes for even better grip. I have one set in my car and another in my wife's car, and we both love them. And let's not forget the cargo liner, which is particularly important for utility vehicles like these. All WeatherTech products come with a lifetime guarantee, so do yourself a favor and click the link in the description below and find the perfect fit for your car today.
The Hyundai Palisade and its corporate cousin, the Kia Telluride, rolled into the new year as the three-row SUVs to beat, with a fresh round of improvements to keep them in fighting form. This is the Palisade calligraphy, or ultimate calligraphy in the land of Tim Hortons. And we're going to start with what's changed, and if that's enough for it to hold on to its crown. Hyundai has dropped in bigger screens because that's the style at the time, both behind the wheel and atop the center of the dash. They're both highly legible and customizable, though Apple CarPlay and Android Auto both remain of the wired variety. Crucially, Hyundai has kept the big physical dials and buttons below, so it's easy to flip between menus or adjust the audio and climate settings. We appreciate the sizable storage space below the center console too. This interior still shames some so-called premium brands. The soft leather seating surfaces, pinstripe dashboard, and Alcantara headliner combine for a swanky cabin, one lit with just the right amount of color-adjustable ambient lighting. So the driver's seat is now of the Ergo Motion variety, which is a quasi-massage seat that subtly moves around to stretch your muscles and reduce fatigue. In sport mode, it also gently hugs you, because why not? The Palisade was top of the class in terms of interior comfort. It came second behind the Pilot for the front seats, but it was top of the charts for the second and the third row. So not only are they comfortable, but they're pretty practical too, with storage options and charging. The Palisade also includes test-exclusive power-folding third and second row seats, making it easier to extend the storage space when you're in the back. There's a whole heap of other tech in here too. Not only does the Palisade have a head-up display that's clear and large, It has a robust safety suite, including the always excellent blind spot view monitor, and even the sound system's pretty good. Also new for 2023 is there's a digital key function that lets you use your phone as the key. It's almost sounding too good to be true, right? The Palisade's lone drivetrain option is its biggest weak point. The 3.8-liter V6's 291 horsepower ain't nothing to sneeze at, but it needs to be revved to deliver the goods. Even then, the 8-speed isn't exactly eager to kick down. It's not as if the fuel economy makes up for the merely okay performance either. It's best to really lean into the Palisade's big softy personality, as the suspension tuning is all cushy comfortableness. Yes, there is a sport drive mode, but it's about as appropriate as wearing a pair of Asics with a custom suit. The Palisade does not like to be hustled, and honestly, with that super high up driving position, you probably won't enjoy it either. None of our judges were exactly enamored with the Palisade's exterior styling either, scoring it near the back of the pack. We know looks are subjective, but when the rest of the package is so darn good, the parts that don't wow stand out. The Palisade now aligns better with the rest of Hyundai's SUV and truck line, but that big grille can be a little overwhelming. Lesser trims, listen to Mick and paint it black, but that still feels played out too. With the Palisade, Hyundai is really asking the same question that Mazda is with the new CX-90. That is, do you really need to spend thousands more on a luxury model when you can get all the ambiance and features right here? Sure, this is a pretty minor refresh, but at the same time, the Palisade didn't need a whole lot of fixing. So, can its good value, its laundry list of features, and its comfy, capacious interior really overcome that shrug-inducing powertrain? Before I answer that question, I'm going to hand this back over to Mike for something same but different.
The Kia Telluride in a few short years went from unknown quantity to segment standout. The stylish 3-row SUV is a star in its segment and this year received a significant refresh. But everything else here is just as new, so the question is it still a frontrunner? One of the biggest standouts about the boxy Telluride has been the vehicle's stylish looks inside and out. With the recent refresh, even if those cool amber daytime running lights are gone, it's just as true as ever. The interior in particular drew a lot of praise for its premium look and feel. The clean look doesn't affect usability either, as most functions can be done with the hard buttons scattered around the infotainment screen. Still, there are a few nuances we'd change if we could. Front seat comfort ranks about mid-pack, while the second row trails most, mainly due to the overly stiff seating surfaces. Why are the Palisade seats so much better than the Tellurides in the second row? We do not know. Kia does pick up points though when it comes to third row comfort, and the Telluride has good cargo carrying capability. The Telluride's 3.8-liter V6 is the largest in test and one of the most powerful, with 291 horsepower on tap. It's paired to a smooth 8-speed automatic transmission. In isolation, this drivetrain operates quite well, but when compared to the competition, it receives some of the lowest marks in our test. The engine feels strained in the lower RPMs. At higher revs, the power and response explodes to life. It's a bit of an all-or-nothing experience. Not helping the case is a slow-to-respond transmission that takes a moment to downshift when not in sport mode. Once it does kick down a few gears, the Telluride hustles forward with authority. Overall, the drivetrain lacks the instant torque feel of the Subaru Ascent or the flexibility of the Honda Pilot. Ride comfort and vehicle response are other areas where the Telluride struggles a bit. The ride can get choppy on broken pavement, and the vehicle feels heavier than it is when maneuvering through bends. The Telluride drives like a big SUV, but not quite the truck-like feel we found in the Pathfinder. On the technology front, the Telluride is hard to beat. It's crammed full of features like blind spot cameras, heated and ventilated seats for the first 2 rows, head-up display, and a fully customizable digital dash. Although we did complain a bit about the infotainment system controls, there's no denying how well the software works. It's intuitive, customizable, and straightforward to set. Is it slightly easier to use in the Telluride's corporate cousin, the Palisade? Yes, it is. Is it still fantastic in here though? That's also true. The updates the Telluride received this year should keep it as competitive as ever, but we do feel some of the competition has closed the gap significantly. Add in the fact that Kia has the second highest as-tested price in our comparison, and the Telluride may be hard-pressed to finish on the podium. But before we get to that, on to the next vehicle.
When we were distributing the purely objective points at the beginning of this comparison, the Toyota Highlander took an early lead. And then we drove it and found that the new turbo engine is actually a really good match for the Toyota's 3-row SUV. Unfortunately, by the end of the comparison, it had tumbled clear out of podium contention. That doesn't make it a bad SUV, it just makes it a compromised one. First off, this is the runt of the litter. The Highlander would be the least lengthy if not for the extended bumper of this XSE model. It ties the Ascent as the narrowest, and it's the shortest. We like a tidy footprint as much as the next person, but the Highlander's dimensions leave it with a comparatively tight interior. One that, in this case, is liberally bathed in very red leather. The front row is all gravy, but the issues start creeping up in the middle row, with an awkward bump in the headliner that's right at eye level for adults. Then there's the back row, which can make even reasonably sized adults feel like Ian from The Simpsons. That the red leather doesn't even extend to the way back tells you how much of a priority it really is. Toyota's upcoming Grand Highlander would have remedied this space-related criticism, but it's still a few months away. None of our judges had any such complaints about the Highlander's powertrain. The 2.4-liter has strong mid-range and more torque than anything here not wearing a Mazda badge. That 8-speed auto is also a really smooth shifter too, with good response times that are better than either of the Koreans. This XSE trim also has some added sportiness with torque vectoring for its all-wheel drive system. You're not really going to notice that back and forth to the mall, but nonetheless, the Highlander is one of the more fun cars to hustle around here. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Toyota has leapfrogged the competition with its latest infotainment, going from the back of the pack to right up front. The system is a cinch to use, the navigation is good, so long as your subscription is active, and it pairs to smartphones wirelessly. The lack of a tuning knob makes station hunting more work than it should be, and the small screen does make for some cramped screens, like the Sirius menu. But otherwise, this is one of our favorites. Unfortunately, this mid-grade model comes with one of the lightest equipment lists here. You can get things like a fully digital instrument panel, ventilated seats, and hands-free liftgate, but a lot of them are locked away in the highest trim. So what holds the Toyota back? Well, the XSE does get hit pretty badly for low material quality. It's missing some of the premium feel that's in most of the other competitors here. It is more affordable than most of them, but you notice it, even more so than the Nissan. Toyota's new infotainment and new engine does improve the Highlander, but it still feels like a half size too small for this class.
The Subaru Ascent is the no-nonsense vehicle of the three-row SUV world. It's designed to excel at its job without any excessive flash or flare. Shuttling 7 or 8 passengers from point A to point B, regardless of road or weather conditions, is its main goal. But this year, Subaru has given it a little more personality to help broaden the vehicle's appeal. For 2003, Subaru has given the Ascent a refresh inside and out. The most notable changes are the larger infotainment screen on the higher-end trim levels and the revised front-end styling. So conservative was the original Ascent styling, it was easily confused for other vehicles on the road, especially other Subarus. With the new Ascent's look, that should no longer be the case, as it's definitely different. Unchanged is the Ascent's drivetrain, which continues to use a 260 horsepower, 2.4-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder paired to a continuously variable automatic transmission. Despite the countless CVT detractors, in practice, this drivetrain works just fine. Is it noisy? It can be. But even with the second lowest horsepower rating, the Ascent is very responsive. After the scores were tallied, we ranked the engine-transmission combo 3rd best in test. Also receiving a lot of praise is the ride comfort, which places 2nd in test. The best part is that it doesn't overly affect handling, which still ranks in the upper half of the test. And of course, how can we discuss a Subaru without mentioning its all-weather capabilities? Even though every vehicle on hand is equipped with all-wheel drive, and most have various drive modes for slippery conditions, if a sudden snowstorm hits us during filming, we are probably all going to be seeking out the Ascent. Inside, the good news continues as the Ascent provides a terrific driver's vantage point. As is a Subaru specialty, sightlines are fantastic all around. We all agree this is probably the easiest vehicle to operate, as all the controls are light, responsive, and do exactly what the driver intends them to do. Secondary controls for things like the climate control and radio are just as easy to find, but the infotainment may take a moment to get used to. Less impressive is the front seat itself, which scored near the back of the pack in terms of comfort. It's a similar story for the 2nd and 3rd rows as well, which trailed most in terms of seat comfort and space. Even after the refresh, the Ascent still lacks the premium feel of many of the competitors on hand here. Everything is laid out in a logical fashion throughout the cabin, but the design and materials trail much of the competition. It's still the no-nonsense function over form interior that does appeal to some, but it won't to others. Subaru has aggressively priced the Ascent as it's one of the more affordable options here, but still features plenty of content like ventilated front seats, a panoramic sunroof, and a driver distraction mitigation system. But there's still no wireless phone charging. Are you listening, Subaru? I really want that feature. But overall, the Ascent does offer consumers a lot who are looking for all-weather multi-person transportation. The question is, will its lack of refinement and desirability keep it off the podium? The Nissan Pathfinder is a bit of an anomaly in this comparison test. While most manufacturers sent us fully loaded trims with price tags to match, Nissan sent us this. It is the Pathfinder Rock Creek, and it oozes charisma, and it has the lowest as-tested price of anything here. The Rock Creek is a familiar name to the Nissan faithful as it signifies a more rugged version of the brand's popular three-row SUV. With the latest Pathfinder, this is still true. It receives Rock Creek badging everywhere, a revised look up front, more aggressive wheels and tires, as well as a tubular roof rail system. It also has increased ground clearance, but even at the raised 7.7 inches, it's still one of the lowest vehicles in the group. We really like this look, especially painted in Baja Brown like our test vehicle. It stands out in a crowd of look-alike SUVs and adds some real personality. Inside, orange stitching and multiple embroidered Rock Creek badges can be found, but it's not enough to liven up the interior. The design is basic and a bit drab, but at least it's very functional. There are large knobs and buttons for most controls, making the Pathfinder very user-friendly. Passenger space and comfort are other strong points for the Pathfinder, at least when it comes to the front two rows. In fact, the second row probably has the most space out of any vehicle in this group. Part of the reason for that is because there is no sunroof whatsoever in the Rock Creek. To make this vehicle look so cool, yet also be affordable, money had to be saved elsewhere. This is the least equipped vehicle on hand and lacks items like heated rear seats, a power passenger seat, navigation, and wireless phone charging. In the USA, there isn't even a power liftgate, which we find to be a big omission, even on a lower priced trim like this. Under the hood of the Rock Creek does have another trick up its sleeve. The 3.5-liter V6 found in all Pathfinders receives a minor power boost up to 295 horsepower total, which is the second most in our test. Partnered up with a new 9-speed automatic transmission, we are divided on the drivetrain. Some of us really like the ample power that's available at nearly every speed, while others find the engine to be a bit coarse and truck-like. It was a similar story with ride comfort. Most found it to be one of the better riding vehicles on hand, while others found it to be a bit choppy. When it comes to handling though, we all agree the Pathfinder is one of the more truck-like vehicles to drive. It has more of a traditional SUV feel behind the wheel than anything else in our comparison. The Pathfinder Rock Creek is a niche vehicle, but still a really compelling one. It appeals to those who want a multi-passenger vehicle with a bit more personality. It probably won't win our comparison test, but for a certain consumer, it is exactly what they're looking for.
Eagle-eyed viewers must have figured out that the Mazda CX-9 is the odd one out from the very beginning. We said new or recently updated, and this thing is neither. However, as the elder Mazda 3-row, we had to bring it along to see how it compares to its sibling and if it's still relevant to the market. Turns out it is. This is a very satisfying SUV, especially if you care about style and driving dynamics. So it's almost a car reviewer cliche at this point, but yes, at least to our eyes and internal funometer, the CX-9 has still got it. Okay, Soul Red does do some of the heavy lifting as the best red on the market. The CX-9 is just classically good looking. Solid proportions, a lack of fuss in the flanks, and wide, squinty headlights. Personally, I find the tailgate much more identifiably Mazda than the newer SUV too. These 20-inch alloy wheels are just kind of there, however. And still, despite its age, the CX-9 is one of the best looking large SUVs out there. The good feelings continue behind the Mazda CX-9's thin steering wheel. Hey Mazda, can you just swap this back into the CX-90? Thanks. The CX-9 was one of the first 3-row SUVs to go to a turbo 4-cylinder engine, and it remains one of the better ones out there. There's a ton of torque. In fact, more than anything here except the CX-90, in fact. It makes it a really easy car to drive around every day, although that 6-speed automatic is starting to show its age. Not so much with its smooth shifts, but with the way that it holds the revs a lot higher on the highway than some of the other SUVs here. This being the lightest SUV here, the CX-9 is quick off the line, adept at highway passing, and good fun to chuck along a winding road. The steering has good weight and consistency, making the CX-9 shrink around the driver. Is this a genuinely fun to drive large SUV? Yes. Okay, so large is kind of pushing it. Even though the CX-9 is one of the lengthiest vehicles here, and like everything except the CX-90, it's built on a front drive-based platform, the cabin is a little on the snug side. So up front you have a wide center console which gives it a definite cockpit feel, but larger drivers might be penned in. The second row is honestly pretty good. There's good headroom, good legroom, and those captain's chairs are super comfortable. But then you get back here and if you're an adult, it's not so much sitting in here as being installed. And you don't get a whole lot of creature comforts either back here. I'm good. Can I get out now, please? Where the elder Mazda also falters is its feature list and refinement. There's buzz from the drivetrain, and as mentioned before, the 6-speed can't keep up with the newer transmissions out there. You're missing out on the gaggle of charge ports and cup holders in the others, to say nothing of fancier features like a digital instrument cluster. While the CX-9 does have a 360-degree camera, it's grainy and permanently overexposed. We still find Mazda's super simple infotainment more frustrating than freeing, too. So there are two questions that we needed to answer with the Mazda CX-9. Is it still competitive in its segment, and does it justify its existence with its newer sibling now available? The answer to both questions is yes. This is still a satisfying SUV, depending on your priorities, and it's a very different experience than the luxury brand-chasing CX-90. Is that enough to upset the finishing order? Well, we've done all the cars now, so let's move to the results.
After all the testing was complete and the scores were added, things were close. All the vehicles scored within 10% of each other, and the top two finishers were only a fraction of a point apart. So let's get on to the podium finishers. Coming in a comfortable third place is the Honda Pilot. Spacious, comfortable, and with excellent road manners, the new Pilot builds on all the old Pilot's strengths and improves on its weaknesses. If it were a little lower priced, it might have even won the whole competition.
The other newcomer scores an impressive silver medal finish here. Mazda CX-90 is its third double-digit model, and it's its most impressive yet. This is truly an impressive SUV, one that can easily take on the established luxury brands. However, that does come with a big price penalty, at least in the US. Had we had the lower-powered engine option here, it probably would have won outright. And in Canada, where the pricing is that much closer, the CX-90 is an easy choice. This is the best model here, but you have to pay to play.
And that brings us to the overall winner from the AutoGuide 3-row SUV comparison shootout brought to you by WeatherTech. As Kyle said, the Mazda CX-90 is the best vehicle here, but when it comes to the best value, the winner is the Hyundai Palisade. It's feature-packed, spacious, easy to operate, and feels premium. But this wasn't as decisive as a win as it once was for Hyundai as the competition continues to improve. But for now, the Palisade is the champion of the 3-row SUVs.